The entire fiat system is a giant control mechanism. The ability to opt out of that system and instead store something that, because it's non-physical, doesn't degrade, it doesn't need to be maintained. I think it's the most significant invention any of us have been alive for. And it's just simultaneously so simple, but it's so elegant. You can stare right at it and not comprehend what a big deal this is. When you're forced to use different forms of money that melt over time, it really changes the decisions that you have to make for yourself and your family and within your community just to survive. Bitcoin is saving. It is taking your money and buying a provably finite thing that is, in my opinion, the simplest thing anyone can do with their money. The simplest thing you can do with your money is save it in the hardest form of money that's ever existed. The coolest part about Bitcoin is that it transforms our understanding of what it means to have ownership over something. This one thing is so simple, but it is so significant. Bitcoin confers a type of ownership that is very difficult to exercise in physical possessions. It's like having a Swiss bank account in your mind, and inside that Swiss bank account is the most valuable form of money that's ever existed. It is impossible for someone to take it from you by force or prevent you from giving it to someone else. All of these things kind of come together to create a really dynamic force of change, which can really reimagine what we even think about as being ownership. In the pre-digital world or the pre-Bitcoin world, we just associate ownership with owning physical stuff. The kinds of ownership you can have with physical things are just not as good. They're fleeting. You can't take your house with you to another country if you decide you have to leave. You can't send your gold across borders. If you have a significant amount of it, you're not going to be able to travel with it. These things can be taken from you. Bitcoin just presents an entirely new paradigm of ownership. And from there, it's possible to really start to think about a sweeping reimagination of basically everything that we relate to what owning stuff even means. Bitcoin is a new form of transacting financially, owning property digitally differently. When you put those things together, what you have is a parallel system that is emerging in real time. And you're still able today to trade paper money that the government issues that has no relationship between energy and time for a type of money which is unique and incredibly valuable. And if the Bitcoin thesis proves to be right, it's going to be a system of money that basically obsoletes the old way of money. It's a way to escape the trappings of how the current financial system works and everything that works in it. It's the solution to all of these problems that people haven't really understood. And this is kind of where I think, like, if you treat Bitcoin as an investment, you'll probably do well, and that's fine. If you treat it as an entirely different way of thinking about wealth and ownership, you are like invited into just a totally different opportunity. Michael Saylor says that the Bitcoin land grab will be done by 2035. And that's basically when 99.99% of all the Bitcoin have been mined. We're alive right now in a time where Bitcoin is still available. You can still get a reasonable amount of it. If you're selling it back into fiat to buy fiat denominating assets, I personally believe that Bitcoin is going to demonetize a lot of the things that you would be swapping to buy for. We're in a transition period right now until something changes that suggests to me the price of Bitcoin is going to be astronomically higher, and then there will just come a time where we just refer to the Bitcoin price when we're trying to understand the cost of everything else. And I fully believe that we'll see that happen like while you and I are alive. Bitcoin is this source of truth. It can't help but shine a light on all of these innate problems with the current system. This is why I think it's inevitable. It has this gravity that will ultimately attract more and more people. It just kind of becomes one of those things that the longer you stare at it, the more it makes sense. And the more it makes sense, the more absurd the things we've been told to believe seem. Hyper-Bitcoinization, I think it could happen sooner than most people think. There have been tons of paper money collapses throughout human history. It's not like we aren't aware that this happens or that how it works. And when all of a sudden there's like a dash for the exit and a handful of people already understand what that is, like I think things could change pretty quickly. Money is a representation of value, right? The relationship between money and time should be bonded by energy. This is where the relationship between fiat money really distorts our sense-making mechanisms, because there is no relationship of energy between fiat money and time. And when they're continually eroding the value of the money, what they're effectively doing is devaluing the time that was spent to earn that money or produce that value. What we're really trying to do, most of us, anywhere in the world, is maximize the return on our time. We want to be able to store our time. So if I have to spend my time earning money so that I can survive, ideally, I can convert that energy and time back into something I can consume in the future. And to do that, I need to have a vehicle that can effectively store it, a battery, a time battery, right? When money does not do that, we have to sell our money and buy other things that drives the price of those other things up, hopefully faster than the value of our money is going down and the value of our time is being eroded. When you understand that Bitcoin provides a solution to this problem by allowing you to store your time inside a battery, you want something that is going to have 100% efficiency in storing that energy. I can't think of a better way to describe like what's happening in our financial system today, because it's become so insanely convoluted and complicated because there's so much disorder and so much entropy and so much lost unproductive energy that's the result of this money that doesn't work. When you have solved the problem of being able to store your time, that's where I think the spiritual reflection stuff starts to happen, because the biggest problem that we have in the modern world, in my opinion, is not being able to stay in the present moment. And the reason we can't do that is because of how our money works. It means that we need to spend a huge amount of time either in thinking about the past and things that we wish we would have done differently, or about the future and how we're going to possibly make a go of this game of life that's getting progressively harder all the time. You see a lot of frustrated people today with how difficult making a go of life has become. And this is a problem that is a money problem. So things are a lot harder today than they were 40 years ago. How hard it is today is not the end point. It's actually has a very high likelihood of getting much harder. We have a very high certainty of money working worse and worse than we're used to. You get maybe the odd degree of lip service to the destructive power of inflation and social fabric from politicians, but nobody is really willing to address the elephant in the room, which is, government solutions are creating like a dependence on the state, because any of the solutions the government wants to offer are going to result in the devaluation of everyone's money and the hyper-financialization of any desirable assets that people have. So that outcome can't create a society that works functioning as a group. These things force people onto a journey of financial self-survival. I get a lot of people who are very opposed to the idea of Bitcoin, even though they don't know anything about it. And it's because we have been really conditioned to trust the state and trust money that is issued by the state, even though that very money is a core part of why people are experiencing the kinds of problems they are. I don't think people think of getting rid of your money in exchange for something else as selling your money. But like, if things are more desirable than money, and the only, so money itself should be a desirable thing to own. And this is why Bitcoin is so great, because it is actually the most, valuable thing until something better comes along. Housing needs to be affordable, but houses have proven to be an outperforming asset over an extended period of time and sort of a durable store of value over decades. That has been objectively a smarter thing to do with your money than own just your money. And then there's this obvious secondary problem that then people start gobbling up houses. If you can afford more than one house and you're really still better off owning houses instead of money, you're going to buy two houses, which that just makes sense. You can't blame people for intuiting the smart decision that's best for them. The problem is that we're being forced to use a money system, which then causes people to have to go out and make decisions that really protect themselves first. And that's just not the way to build a society that is cohesive. We do really pay for houses with time, and it get mortgaged, which is like a death contract. So if you're selling a house, all these boomers bought their house for $70,000 in 1975, and they're selling it for $3 million now to someone who is pledging to pay for that house for 30 years. Effectively, the people who are selling that house are monetizing 30 years of life from the person who's willing to buy it from them. The infinite money system actually requires continual expansion. If this thing doesn't inflate forever, it collapses. I think it's very likely that the deflationary nature of AI causes us to think differently about physical stores of value. And an AI economy is just going to run very differently. If we ever get to a point where AI is making autonomous decisions at scale as economic actors, they're going to make the most rational decision about money, and they're going to use Bitcoin because it will make sense. If AI were to initiate some kind of large-scale deflationary bust, which I also believe personally is going to happen, it could change how people envision what it even means to own your own home. We've commingled our principal residence with our sort of financial battery and our retirement plan. Those things are going to get separated. You want to have a tool that, regardless of what is happening in the larger world, you want to have something that is kind of AI proof in terms of protecting your sovereignty and your ability to store time and energy. And that's where I think that Bitcoin is really the preferred savings vehicle for the information age.